Hey, hi everyone. Today we are joined by John Adams, who's an experienced practitioner. He's able to find time with us. He's traveling internationally, but he was still able to find time for us. So that's great. And I would like to welcome our audience to Gain once again. It's the Global AI Impact Network, where we don't do polished, we do honest. And we focus on moving organizations from experimentation, AI experimentation, to real impact. Um, I've already talked about John, and with me is also Louie. As you know, we do this. We bring together our thoughts on how to practically implement AI on a frequent basis, and this is our interview series that we are starting with John. John has been inside major corporations where AI has been used for left, right, and center, and we are really hoping to learn from him and also our audience to take away something from his the practice, the privacy and AI risk practice that he's been a part of at Airbnb, I guess. And John, if you don't mind, please give us a bird's eye view of your what you've been doing and what is what does privacy and AI risk really mean in practice?
Thank you so much for having me today. Very excited for this conversation. I think, before we get into it, I think Gain is addressing a real problem, moving out of pilots, experimentation into real world applications and scaling them and really changing the economy and facilitating the knowledge to do that. I think, we need more organizations to help businesses do this. And so excited to be here with you today. My background is in privacy compliance and now AI risk. AI risk has been a growing area, as everyone knows, over the last 5 years or so. And the opportunities to work in that space have just been endless with almost every major company exploring AI these days. I currently I lead privacy and AI risk work for the hosting business at Airbnb. I run the privacy review process, and also I'm a decision maker for AI models and applications for the hosting business. Um, and my role focuses on enabling the responsible deployment of AI systems that impact all of our users and the business. I also worked for the AI organization at Meta for about 3 years. There, I focused on doing risk reviews for AI systems. I worked on model training risks, red teaming, supporting risk approval processes across stakeholders. And that was where that I got an opportunity to see a company that jumped into the AI space race. As not actually, maybe not everyone knows that Meta has developed their own foundational LLMs, and they open source them, and they've also developed some closed models as well. And folks probably know now that Meta has built their super intelligence team, and they spent hundreds of is it hundreds of billions
Billions
of
of
dollars now?
tokens.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
on
that's another race.
trying to
Yeah,
create super intelligence in your pocket is their whole approach. And so it was very interesting to see them start that journey and get the opportunity to see how these companies go about it. And then along the way at both companies, Airbnb and Meta, I've seen how the AI adoption is designed, tested, designed, built, tested, and implemented and scaled across user-facing use cases and also internal productivity use cases. And so I'm happy to talk about some of those examples as we get into it today.
amazing. Thank you, John. Louis, you want to take it away?
Yeah, John, very excited to have you here. A lot of members of our community are world practitioners, and we've just witnessed the industry just littered with pilots and prototypes looking good and then just halting. You are one of the few that have been part of instrumental teams that moved those experiments into core business infrastructure, both at Airbnb and Meta. So if you can just shed some light on the particular domains that they did and touch upon how.
Sure. So I think the reason why that we're seeing organizations struggle with AI is the time to value is not very short in a lot of cases. And and a lot of this has to do with the way that the teams execute and the talent that you have. And so the companies that have been successful with deploying AI and it's actually stuck in their organizations have focused on a specific set of use cases and also developing a certain set of talent. So when you think about use cases, you want to think about high frequency decisions that happen thousands or even millions of times if you're thinking about some of these large internet platforms. And they have high impact outcomes. So it impacts revenue, it impacts costs, or impacts risk. And also use cases where there's clear feedback loops where you can measure success. And so when you think about this in the context of Meta and Airbnb, you can think about systems like dynamic pricing systems. You can think about risk scoring systems to evaluate user interactions. So for Airbnb, for example, like bookings or messaging safety escalations. And you can also think about, when I was at Meta, my focus was on the monetization side of the business. And so thinking about using AI for ad targeting to predict user behaviors, and to help advertisers generate content as well, like using Gen AI. And so the idea is that you're looking for these high frequency decisions to embed AI along the way. And then the question then becomes, do you want AI making all the decisions or some of the decisions, and where do humans need to be in the loop? And so later on, we'll get into how do you decide when you need humans in the loop, and usually it's a risk-based approach. And so happy to double click into any of those thoughts that we may have.
Yeah, I mean, you had mentioned a ridiculously strong stat around the blocking of the high risk reservations. That's a real outcome. You want to provide a little more insight on that? How did Airbnb get to a level where they were able to scale to that?
Yeah, well, first of all, the unique thing about these organizations is that they already had a big, large scale when they started looking at AI, which is a kind of a lucky place to be in, you know. And so the use case that Louie mentioned was risk scoring systems that evaluate bookings and are able to block what Airbnb would consider higher risk reservations. And so it's worth mentioning that this, there's a whole lot of people that work on this at Airbnb. And one of the types of high risk reservations is reservations that might be for parties. And so party detection or party intent detection is something that Airbnb has built a use case around to prevent parties from taking place at homes where the host doesn't want that to happen. Mm-hmm. And the reason is that, parties tend to cause damage in properties. And so what Airbnb was able to do was look back across its history. Again, they already have achieved scale. They have a rich data set available to them showing when that they've received party escalations or when hosts have complained about guests throwing parties, and they've been able to look back and find common scenarios where that a guest shows an intent to have a party, and those signals come from various places. So those signals can come from messages to the host, the guest asking specific questions that signal that the guest is intending to have many people at the property, and also if an example of that would be, the guest is asking for information in order for like catering to arrive, or other services to facilitate and provide a service for a party. And so the idea is that as the guests interact with hosts, we have message scanning systems that are looking for these triggers. And also we can look across the history of that guest's profile and see if they've done parties in the past, and block reservations, or at least flag them to a human, one of our ops team members, to evaluate that situation and make a decision. And so when you think about this system and use case, it's really important to hone in on a narrow goal. And this is something that I wanted to get across too with being successful with AI, which is, a lot of folks think that you can throw AI at a big problem and it'll solve it. And that might be true in some contexts, but in most contexts, you want to narrow down what you want the AI to decide on. Pretty well defined.
Yeah.
And you would want to fine tune a model just for that purpose, and create a workflow around it. And so that's one example. And that, and this is public, you can read about this, but Airbnb has been able to block over almost a million and a half high risk reservations, which this leads to just better host outcomes. It also leads to, it also improves our relationships with the municipalities as well, because in some cases parties can get out of hand and can cause complaints in the neighborhood. The authorities can even be called in some if you're having a wild party. And so it improves trust for our brand across the board as well.
Yeah, and I've seen that. I mean, a friend of mine, he had put up his property on Airbnb. Everything was going well, and all of a sudden, party got thrown out, and they literally um, were called in the middle of the night because these guests were getting wild, and the neighbors were getting worried. So definitely an important use case, and that's the I think the important aspect I would love to hone into, because again, we talk about the implementation gap, and there are a lot of AI promises being made, but the delivery of real business impact has been very little. You talked about the narrow use case, and Louis has talked about in the past about thin slicing your use case. But overall, from the company thought process, whether it's SMB, whether it's enterprises like large companies, what is a single biggest thing, or maybe important factors that separates their psyche from, or that allows them to close that gap? Um, One survey said that 74% of the companies utilizing AI are stuck in pilots. So how can they move off of it? How they can make practical use of it?
Mhm. Yeah, I think with what you have to, and the way that I think about this is, uh, you have to target real workflows, not just low risk sort of non-visible projects. You have to target your big core business workflows and your big core business processes. And you want to set up a team within your organization that has clear ownership across product, engineering, risk, infrastructure, to think about how are we actually going to rebuild this from the ground up. If you and the idea here is that just like with any major shift, you have to decide to either fully adopt a new technology or risk falling behind against your competition. And so I think some of this is it's a combination of hesitancy to really hand over the decision-making power to these AI systems, and also just a challenge with attracting and developing the talent needed in order to execute these projects. And it's not a problem of it's not a problem that people are not interested. It's really like Louie had mentioned before we started the recording, the time interval of how fast the economy is changing and the time interval of AI adoption is so, relatively speaking, it's so short. We're still just a few years into this, that there's not a lot of people that have been able to see a full life cycle implementation of a successful AI program. Those people are few and far between. And so, so when you think about how, if you're an executive and you're thinking about how do I answer to my board what our plan is with AI, you really want to take a step back and look at your core business, and you want to figure out how do I build this into our most important workflows, and also how do I attract the talent to help me build this.
Very interesting. That's a great thought.
Absolutely. John, you brought up something that I hadn't even thought about, or I haven't heard anyone talk about, at least not as directly. The difference between implementing AI systems and an AI feature within an existing platform.
Right.
Those are two completely different things, but
Yeah.
everyone's talking about it as if it's the same, right? We're implementing AI. First, can you explain how you define those two different things? And then how do you talk to a leader and explain to them that they're really different? They have different goals, different imprints, different footprints. I should say different outcomes and different footprints.
Yeah. So I'll use Airbnb as an example. So let's think about an AI feature versus an AI system. Okay. So when you're thinking about an AI feature, really, it's usually a chatbot is what we're seeing. We're seeing a chatbot that can answer some questions about an existing product or an existing process, or other business function. And so the idea is that the chatbot, it has access to context about what's happening with the product and how to use it, but it doesn't do anything more than that. It provides information, and it can't make decisions. It can't actually take some of the tasks off your plate as a user or as an employee. And so that's where we see some teams maybe focused on too narrow of a use, not leaning in enough into the decision-making power that AI has. And so what we need to shift away from is we need to move away from chatbot to agentic decision-making. And so moving away from just information retrieval to agentic AI. And so thinking about what some of those AI systems are, Airbnb is interested in creating an AI concierge for guests. And so imagine a future where you go to Airbnb and you say, I want to travel with my family. I have 2 kids, one of them's a toddler. I want to bring my dog with me. And we want to go to the beach somewhere. We live in New York City, and we want to have a less than a 3-hour flight direct. And we need a grocery store nearby, and I want there to be a crib in the location, and also we would love to have a babysitter come and maybe a massage therapist because we've been raising kids. I'm speaking. I think I'm getting a little personal here, actually. And this is
Pretty
coming straight from
detailed,
the
John.
heart. This is coming straight from the heart. And
Hypothetically, we're talking.
yeah, completely hypothetical. So that's the idea. You give it that information, and an AI concierge is able to do a lot of research on your behalf. It has access to the internet, so it can find places that are within a 3-hour flight to you, and then search on Airbnb for properties that match that criteria, allow for pets, and are close to the services that you need. And also Airbnb can book that massage therapist and a babysitter on the platform for you. And so it can go and search and retrieve all this information, bring back a cohesive itinerary with a cost, and a quick decision can be made, and modifications can be made. Right now, all of that process, that entire process, you have to do it yourself. You have to go and search for flights, look at the costs, and bring it all together. And so you can also, think about how much control would you want to give that system. Maybe before that you book the babysitter, you want to give them a call. You could even ask an agentic system to call them with using a voice AI agent. We're talking about using voice AI for certain use cases at Airbnb now. And it can gather that information for you and bring it back without having to spend time on it. And so when you think about a feature versus a system, what that system is that Airbnb's vision is moving toward. And Brian Chesky talks a lot about this. So if you're interested in this use case, go look him up on YouTube. It's changing the way travel works. Okay, travel right now does not work that way. You cannot just provide a quick prompt, maybe even with your voice, and then 30 minutes later you get a response with all this curated information for you. That's a new system for travel. It's not just providing a feature that gives you some information quickly. And then over time, what makes these AI systems even more powerful is learning about the user. And so let's say that I do that for the first time on Airbnb and I have a great time and it works. Well, Airbnb knows what I need now. And so if I need to travel again, it's going to have that history, and it's going to have Airbnb has information about what to look for in the future. If I have a bad experience and I call customer service and I speak to a person at Airbnb, we have that information as well. And so we don't make the same mistake. And so feedback loops are also very important when you're thinking about building your AI system. You need not only to create a really good output, but you need continuous inputs, and you need to build them at your user level or at your whatever your customer entity type is. So it's users or other businesses. And the idea, one of the really powerful things about AI is it's context aware. And so this is probably another really important thing to focus on, which is when you're thinking about moving from pilot into scale, you have to think about how are we going to provide this system with the right context to make these experiences really powerful for users. And I know that I might be preaching to the choir a little bit, but data foundations and data governance are essential. Actually, even more essential than they used to be now that we have AI. And so there's a lot of folks in the industry that know about these things already, and they just have to flex their experience to help these new AI pilots become scaled out solutions.
Yeah, I think you kind of touch on an important point too of having AI agents isn't the same as agentic AI, where agentic AI is layering all that context and understanding and learning and all of that.
Right.
Yeah, that's next level layering. It's exciting where we're gonna be.
Yeah.
And Harjo and I talked about in the past around data governance and data strategy is actually using AI to improve those aspects of it because it's almost unachievable without it. We've tried decades to build data strategies and they've always been too reactive, could never scale. And it was an indictment on the strategy itself when it was just the gaps in the governance and you just couldn't catch up. You couldn't manually stay ahead of the rules. So that's
true.
that's all bringing that all together and being able to explain that like you did to executive is fantastic.